Do you ever wish you were able to be more active in a conversation? Maybe you're at lunch and there's a bunch of native speakers nattering away and you can't get a word in edgeways. So you decide to keep quiet. Eat your lunch and nod along, showing that you're supposedly taking part in the conversation. But what if I told you that there are learnable techniques that you can come away from this video with to enable you to not just get more involved in a conversation, but actually influence the direction it goes, meaning you can lead it towards a topic you have an interest in. I find it quite odd how nobody ever actually teaches us these things. We just get thrown into socializing as little kids. And then over years and years, we sort of figure out how to get by. And most of us miss out on how to be a good conversationalist. And that leads us to think it's something you have or don't have, which is really detrimental because it makes those who haven't learned how to be one feel like there's no hope. I'm not a good conversationalist, so what's the point? I'll just listen. Well, I'm here today to challenge that. We will start with a simple yet powerful technique that many good conversationalists use on a regular basis. It's something that will help you go from just getting by in a conversation to genuinely having brilliant conversations. So today we're not doing grammar, we're not doing vocabulary, we're not doing pronunciation, we're not doing culture. We're focusing on a technique that will improve your ability to be active in a conversation instead of stranded on the edge of it, nodding along, waiting for a gap that never comes. And I'm going to call it branching out. Okay. So what is branching out? Let's say if someone gives you a bit of information, the conversation reaches a little pause, and instead of letting it die there, you take what's been said and you branch off into a related topic, one that keeps things alive and ideally steers the chat somewhere you actually feel comfortable. The key word there is the pause, because every conversation has these little natural lulls, these tiny moments where the topics run out of steam and nobody quite knows where to go next. Most people freeze in that gap. The branching out person, though, they see it as their moment. That pause is the invitation for them to intervene or branch out. And I'd say it's a bit like a muscle. You know, the first few times you do it, if it's a new technique to you, it will feel clunky and slow, but stick with it and it will become second nature. Now, the best way to show you this is to actually watch it happen. So I want you to meet three fictitious friends. There's Tom and Sophie, who between them could talk for England, meaning they could talk a lot for a long period of time. And then there's Alex, who's a bit quieter, the one hovering slightly outside the chat, wanting to join in, but never quite finding the door. Alex is the one we're rooting for today, rooting for, supporting, wanting to do well. So we're going to watch one single evening in one single pub. First, we'll watch it go wrong for Alex. Then we'll rewind and watch Alex take control of the exact moment in 5 different ways. All right, let's set the scene. We're in a pub, a quintessentially English pub. 3 drinks are on the table and Tom and Sophie are mid-flow. And Tom's saying, you know, maybe he's looking at his phone. He says, I swear my screen time went up again this week. 5 hours a day. 5. Then Sophie says, don't. Mine said the same. And I nearly threw the bloody thing in the bin. Then Tom says, it's the scrolling. You pick it up to check one thing, and 40 minutes later, you've forgotten what you were there for. Sophie says, I know, every single time. I keep saying I'll do something about it. Right, excuse the terrible acting. But that is a moment where a natural little pause comes in. The topic's run its course. The gap is kind of widening. And Alex, who hasn't said anything yet, just sits there. Okay? We do this, meaning twiddling your thumbs. So Alex doesn't say anything. And then after a moment, Tom naturally fills the space by saying, that reminds me, did you see Jenny's post from the weekend? And then Sophie says, the Ibiza one. Yeah. How is she affording that? And Tom says, third holiday this year. It was the same villa we stayed in, remember? Sophie says, oh, the one with that awful neighbour. Tom says, oh my God, he complained every single night, didn't he? And they're off, okay? Deep into a holiday Alex wasn't on. A neighbour Alex never met. Alex opens their mouth once, can't find a way in, and quietly loses it again. 5 minutes later, Alex is just there, holding a pint, nodding along to a story that has nothing to do with him. So let's talk about what just happened, because it's not that Tom and Sophie were rude. They weren't. The problem is simpler than that. That pause didn't stay empty. It never does. Someone always fills it. And here, Tom filled it. Tom branched straight into territory that he and Sophie shared, like a holiday, an old neighbour, or a whole little world that Alex was never part of. Alex didn't go on that holiday. And the second that happened, Alex was locked out, really. Not on purpose, just because the conversation got steered and Alex wasn't the one doing the steering. That's the lesson hiding in here. The pause is up for grabs. Whoever grabs it points the conversation wherever they like. So let's do this again and give Alex the wheel. So we've got the same night, same pub, same 2 lines from Tom and Sophie about their screen time, 5 hours. Oh my God, yeah, same here. I want to do something about it, that thing. And then we're going to arrive at that exact same pause, only now Alex is ready. And I'll show you 5 completely different places Alex could take it, all from that one little gap. So we've got the first branch, I'm going to call the personal branch. You take the big general topic and bring it down to the actual humans in the room. Okay, let me explain. So the last line of that little dialogue, Sophie said, every time I keep saying I'll do something about it, right? And then there's a pause. And then Alex comes in with, do you scroll when you're going to bed, like last thing at night? Sophie says, oh yeah, I've started leaving it in the kitchen now. Lasted about 2 days though. And then Tom says, I tried that. Then I bought a second charger for the bedroom and defeated the whole point. And then Sophie says, what about you, Alex? And then Alex gets to continue the conversation. So here, Alex pushed the conversation down the personal branch by leaning in on their actual habits. And notice how it naturally bounced straight back with a question to him. It's likely that would happen unless you're conversing with people that are just disrespectful. If somebody asks a question, involves themselves in that topic, it is much more likely that the recipient will then play back a question to them. Not always the case, but much more likely, right? So that's the first variation. Before we go on to the second variation, and we've got 5 of them coming up, I want you to picture your next dinner, maybe, or work do, or chat with someone you've only just met. And instead of sitting there quietly, hoping somebody throws you a question, you are the one keeping the whole thing alive. The pauses don't scare you anymore. You spot one, you branch, and then the other person walks away thinking, I really liked talking to them. That feeling of never being that spare part again is completely learnable, as I'm trying to tell you. And it's a lovely, lovely feeling. So I've made you a little something for free to get you there faster. 5 minutes with it, and you'll walk away with one branch loaded and ready in your own words. So the next time a conversation goes quiet on you, you won't freeze. You'll just reach for these techniques. If you want that, here's how to grab it. Scan the QR code on screen right now. Or if you're listening, the link is in the description box, show notes, or comments section. And clicking that link will open this screen that video podcast viewers can see right now. Pop your name and email in, and it'll be in your email inbox straight away. But remember to check your spam if it doesn't appear immediately. Right, let's get back to Alex and doing the second variation. Okay, so let's rewind again. And this time, Alex reaches for a timeline branch. Okay, so this is what I'm calling the timeline branch, right? So you're moving the chat backwards or forwards in time. So we've got Sophie's last line. Yeah, every time. I keep saying I'll do something about it. Same pause, but here's the different move. Alex then says, do you reckon we were actually happier before all this? You know, like pre-smartphone. And then Tom responds, God, I used to be so bored on the bus, just staring out the window. Then Sophie says, I miss being bored though, honestly. That's a weird thing to miss. Alex then can say, yeah, and I swear I had my best ideas come to me when I was actually bored. And the conversation continues. So the same setup, but different outcome, right? Alex branched out using a timeline and was able to reflect on how things were before. And now there's a proper thoughtful little chat about boredom and creativity. And Alex didn't just join in on this. Alex started that. So again, you can play to your strengths. If you're somebody who likes to reflect on these things, then you can do exactly that. You can lead or steer the conversation towards that kind of branch, right? But that is the second of 5. So the third one is a culture-based branch. So let's rewind again, same pause. And, you know, Sophie says, yeah, I should really do something about it. Something like that. And this time, Alex branches sideways across cultures, wondering how this looks somewhere else, which is likely a very useful one for you because you're probably interacting with 2 or more cultures in a conversation if you're a non-native speaker of English, right? So we have Sophie saying, yeah, every time, yeah, I keep saying I'll do something different or I'll do something about it. And then Alex says, do you think it's the same everywhere? Like, I heard some schools make the kids hand their phones in at the gate now. And then Sophie says, oh, do they? That's a brilliant idea, actually. And Tom says, my cousin's in Sweden and he reckons nobody touches their phone in cafes over there. Everyone just sits and talks. Sophie says, really? I'd love that. Or I'd find it terrifying. One of the two. And the conversation continues. So again, same pause, but a sideways move this time. He's moved it across borders, let's say. Is it the same everywhere else? And instantly there's a door open for everyone to pour in what they know. You know, Tom's cousin in Sweden, someone's holiday, someone's home country. And as I said, this branch is gold for English learners because it's that perfect invitation for the person you're talking to tell you all about their own world. You hand them the floor and they feel interesting and you learn something. And then if they are a half decent human, they will ask you about your culture in regards to this topic. Win-win. Okay, get the idea? Let's do 2 more though. But to recap quickly, so we had leaning into a personal branch, sort of learning more about the individual, or a timeline branch, going backwards or forwards in time. And then we just had the culture branch. So thinking about other cultures and whether different groups of people do different things. So the fourth one is I'm going to call the cause and consequence branch. So again, another rewind, same pause. Now Alex digs into the why, or the what happens next. So Sophie says, yeah, every time I keep saying I'll do something about it. And then Alex says, why are they so hard to put down though? It's not an accident, is it? Somebody's designed them to be that addictive, haven't they? And then Tom says, oh, completely. There are whole teams of people whose entire job is keeping you scrolling. Sophie then says, that's a little bit sinister when you actually think about it. Then Alex might respond by saying, I'm somehow impressed and horrified at the same time. Right. So this time Alex went digging. Why is this happening? What's behind it? And he looks genuinely curious and thoughtful rather than just nosy towards somebody. And you can point it in two directions. You go backwards into what's causing it, or forwards into where it's all heading. Either way, you've turned a flat little observation into a proper little investigation. And often people enjoy coming up with their own theory as to why something is how it is. But let's go on to the last rewind and the last branch. So this time, Alex zooms out, lifting the small thing up to the big idea underneath it. So Sophie says, every time I keep saying I'll do something about it. And then Alex says, it's mad though, isn't it? When you actually stop and think about it, like we're moaning, but we've got every song ever recorded and basically all the human knowledge sat in our pockets. Our grandparents would have called it witchcraft. Sophie retorts by saying, that's true. I video called my sister in Sydney this morning for free. And then Tom says, do you know what? When you put it like that, I feel a lot less guilty about my 5 hours. And Sophie says, right, maybe we're not addicted. Maybe it's just genuinely brilliant. So there, Alex took screen time, an everyday little moan, and found the bigger idea sitting underneath it. And what was nice about that was that he lifted it somewhere positive. In about 2 seconds, the whole table went from grumbling to actually marveling at the idea. And that's the other little secret of zooming out. You get to choose which way you direct it, and choosing up, finding the wonder rather than the doom, is often the better option for a nice conversation, right? Now, I'd like to say that these examples, I didn't spend ages on those dialogues, right? So they might not feel totally relatable, but I think you get the idea of how to think up these different directions that you can take a conversation. You don't have to just wait and let an opportunity come to you. If you take action, you can steer the conversation. So that is my aim for this video. Take action yourself, and you can become the person in control of the conversation rather than just sitting there nodding along. And the more you do it, the more it becomes second nature, and you start to see these patterns emerge where you can just take the conversation in different directions more easily. But yeah, I'd say what we've just seen was impressive for poor old Alex, because it was the same 3 people, same pub, same lull in the conversation, and then 5 completely different conversations, all hanging on one small decision from Alex. And that is the whole power of this. You are not sitting there waiting to be handed a turn that might never come. You're spotting the pause, and you're deciding where everyone goes next. So yeah, here are your 5 branches to practice. We've got the personal one, bring it down to the humans in the room. We've got the timeline, so you move it backwards or forwards in time. The culture one, that asks how it works somewhere else in the world. And then we've got a cause and consequence, so sort of dig into the why or the what next. And then we've got the zoom out to find the bigger idea underneath. And here's all you actually have to do, really. Don't try to juggle all 5 of them. Just pick one of them. Just pick one to start. Keep it ready. then in your next conversation, listen for that pause. And when it comes, instead of freezing, branch into that one. You'll get it wrong sometimes. The branch will land a bit flat now and then, and that's completely fine. That's the muscle building. Do it a handful of times, and I promise it stops feeling like a technique and starts feeling like part of you, really. If you want to actually drill this, though, right now with different situations, then grab that clever little interactive exercise that I've made for you for free by scanning the QR code on screen now or clicking that link in the description box, show notes, or comments section. And if you're looking for a new way to learn English, something that you've never quite experienced before, then I highly recommend checking out my academy. My approach is quite simple, but a real game changer. If you've ever had one-to-one conversation classes and then after a few months thought, am I actually getting better, or am I just getting more comfortable and have built up a bit more rapport with this one native teacher? Or if you've ever bought an online course and lost motivation to actually finish the thing, then I think I might have found your new home to actually leveling up your English. So head over to thebritishenglishpodcast.com/academy to learn more. All right, that's it for me today. I've been Charlie, the host of the British English Podcast. Thanks for watching or listening, and see you again next week. Bye-bye.